All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the return edition of MMA Cheat Sheet Live. This is Brandon Arcade, and I am joined by Chris Bloodrain39. And this is our returning episode. We've been gone for quite a few cards. Life's been kind of busy. Everybody's been doing their own thing. But we definitely wanted to touch on the New Year's Eve card. It's one of the biggest cards of the year, even though it could have been bigger. Thanks, USADA and Nevada State Athletic Commission for yanking Cain Velasquez. I miss the old days when it didn't matter if you had a broken leg or a broken finger or some weird disease; they'd still let you fight because you needed to earn a paycheck. But I guess times are a changing. Uh, I am joined, like I said, by Chris. We are back in the mix of things. Ridge was unable to join us tonight because we had sort of a bunch of conflicting schedules, but I think we're going to be able to do just fine tonight, considering that we're whittled down to 10 fights this card. Kind of disappointing considering it is the end of the year card, and for DFS purposes, I'm not a big fan of 10 fight cards. I'd much prefer having 13 or 12. Just mixes up the ownership and the variance, and you can really find a lot more value, in my opinion. Uh, Chris, anything you want to add to the opener before we get started here on this card?
No, just looking forward to it. We've got some kind of trends we're going to be seeing in this fight here. A lot of fighters kind of showing the same things, so you kind of just want to pay attention to that.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of themes going through this card. It's almost a cut and dry card, in my opinion. A lot of the favorites are the favorites, and they'll probably win. And I haven't seen too much value in the undercard. Uh, a lot of fights, in my opinion, are going to go to decision, and the ones that are going to end up in a finish are actually already overpriced. Um, with that said, I definitely think that something crazy can happen. We are talking about fist fighting. Uh, I lost my list here for just a split second. Wanting to touch on pricing just a little bit. Anything that stands out off the top, even though we'll touch on each fight, I just wanted to point out that there is a couple of value plays that are in the mid 700s, but not anything that I'm too excited about. I'm more interested in guys like John Lineker, maybe a Nico Price, but even him, I'm just not too big on. It's hard to really, excuse me, ooh, big dinner. For me, like a guy like Tarek Safadine, there is a little bit of value, especially if you're a Cody Garbrandt fan, considering all the shit talk that he's put out there on Dominic Cruz. But I guess let's just jump right into this card. The first fight of the night is going to be Tim Dirty Bird Means, and he's going up against, gosh, I lost it already. He's right here in front of me. Oh, yeah, Alex Cowboy Oliveira. And we were actually just talking about this off the air, trying not to be biased, but for me personally, as an MMA fan first, I am just not a fan of Cowboy Oliveira. After his shenanigans and missed weight against Phil Brooks, or excuse me, Will Brooks. Sorry, CM Punk. No Phil Brooks on this card. uh, I'm just not a fan of the guy. I'm not a fan of his antics. I'm not a fan of his fight IQ. I think that he's bad for the sport. And if it wasn't for his win over Will Brooks, I think that this would be a fight where he would end up getting cut. Uh, my personal opinion on the matter is Tim Means, even though he's susceptible to pretty much any takedown from any fighter in any weight class, I think he knows how to use his reach and his length, and I look forward to seeing Tim Means whip out some tricks. He's got some crazy submissions to go with probably in my opinion, some of the best elbows in the UFC since Kenny Florian. Tim Means is 26-7-1. Alex Oliveira is 15-3-1. Uh, Pricing for me, I personally think that Tim Means does have some value. My prediction for this fight is Tim Means getting a triangle submission from the bottom because I think Alex Oliveira is going to be a little too eager for the takedown, and I think Tim Means knows that. He's one of the smartest, craftiest guys in the UFC, and he's not afraid to lose in order to win. So we could be seeing Tim Means lose the first two rounds just so he can find the right opportunity to catch Alex Oliveira after he gasses, because Oliveira can gas from time to time. I don't have too many positive things I can say about Oliveira in terms of his skills, so I guess I'll pass it on to Chris to see if maybe he's got something nice he could say.
Um, well, he trains an American top team. Period. Yeah, I know. It's pretty much about all I can say. I really got nothing else to say about the guy either. I don't, and this is, I'm glad that I looked at this, without bias. Because even still, I still think Tim Means win this. I'm describing the way he strikes with his elbows as beautiful. He's got beautiful elbows. Yes, I use the word beautiful for a man's elbows, and I'm not saying that in a gay way. I honestly think the way he strikes with those elbows is just amazing. He's got great patience with his strikes, too, and he's showing that, too. Especially in his last fight, he was just so patient and didn't get himself into any trouble where a lot of fighters, they see somebody hurting, they just rush in and act stupid, and not Tim Means. He, like you said, he's extremely smart. Came out that he out of suspension. Yeah, I guess Homasi, that's who he fought against last. But, he looked really good in that fight. I don't know what happened there, why he came back and looked so good, but it doesn't look good for Alex Oliveira if he's going to be facing that level of Tim Means. But 8,400, he's definitely probably one of the top guys that's going to be in our lineup, as far as, if we're going to come up with a value pack, 3-pack. If he doesn't make the 3-pack, he's one of the guys I think can make it in as a 4th or 5th guy for our lineup. So Tim Means I'm going to say second round finish somehow. And I think even if Alex Oliveira takes him down, those elbows are so nasty. He's going to land those elbows even on his back, and they're going to cut up Oliveira. So I honestly think he just gets cut up, and it's either a doctor stoppage or a referee stoppage of some sort in the second round. My official pick.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I think Tim Means has the best elbows since Kenny Florian. The guy cuts people from the top, from the bottom. I mean, as much as I think that he's going to let Oliveira take him down and then try to lock up like a triangle from the bottom, or maybe even transition to a triangle armbar, he could throw like a spinning back elbow because his reach actually permits him to do such a thing against a guy like Oliveira. So, I mean, there is even a chance that Tim Means could catch him on the feet. And in my opinion, Tim Means, with his reach, he might have the better stand up out of these two guys. I don't see a lot of value at all in Alex Oliveira, even if I'm just being unbiased. At 7,800, it is an enticing price tag if you consider the fact that Ronda Rousey is also 8,400, the same as Tim Means. Only her opponent, Amanda Nunes, is 8,000. So I found the pricing to be very unique on this fight. You've got 84 and 78, but then you've got 84 and 8,000. And I know we'll touch on that fight way later in the card, but pricing wise, like DraftKings is being a little wonky on this one, in my opinion. I think if you were to choose between Ronda Rousey and Tim Means at 8,400, Tim Means is probably the better pick for cash games. But overall, I just can't see a situation where Oliveira comes out on top in this one unless he just manages to avoid submissions. But we're talking about a guy who taps before a submission is even in place. So I'm.
Yep. Yeah, he did.
It,
against Cowboy Cerrone, the guy didn't even. I mean, and even if he would have locked it in, you could still put up a fight against the thing. There's things you can do technique wise to break triangle chokes and things like that. At least put in the effort. I mean, I've got maybe a white belt in jiu-jitsu, and I could have fought that harder than he did. It was embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing they teach you when somebody puts you in an arm triangle is a technique called answering the phone. And it's where you put your hand and your wrist up to your ear and you try to press your elbow in a way that applies reverse pressure. And it looks like you're answering an old school telephone. The guy didn't even try. It's like he landed into the position and immediately started tapping. I mean, so the moral of the story is Alex Oliveira is a quitter. And I can't put any of my money, especially in DFS, in a quitter. I can't do it. I don't know if you can, but I'm not into quitters.
Nope. No, I don't put my money on quitters. We even got another quitter coming up here in next fight or two that we'll be talking about, and I won't have probably any shares. Well, I don't want to say any shares because of how much talent this guy has. We'll get into it later, but yeah, Oliveira does not have the talent that this next guy we'll talk about does, and I think we can move on from this fight.
Absolutely, yeah. That's again the bias started to come out because I get riled up at the fact that Oliveira is such a quitter on top of his just terrible personality. I mean, the guy is just a tard, and I mean that in the in any way you can take it other than being offended. The guy is a tard.
Well, he can be offended. If Oliveira somehow listens to this, he's allowed to be offended. We want him
Absolutely.
to be offended.
Absolutely, yes. I just hope that nobody took offense to that. So, moving on. The next fight of the night is Brandon Thatch versus newcomer Nico Price. For me personally, Brandon Thatch at 9,000 versus Nico Price at 7,200. I just I have a hard pick. I have a hard sell on either side here because of Thatch's price and because of Nico Price's abilities. I've watched all the tape you could possibly watch on Nico Price, and to me, he just seems like an overexcited wrestler who has okay takedowns. But at the end of the day, he doesn't really know how to land punches in an effective manner. I mean, it's like he doesn't actually know where the target is. I don't know if you watched that one fight
No.
he had that fight against the black guy whose stand up was really strong in the Muay Thai. But at the end of the fight, he ended up hitting the guy in the back of the head like 18 times. And it's more of a testament to how bad the ref was in that fight for not catching it and stopping it before the illegal blows. But the point is, Nico Price, like, he doesn't have any fight IQ. And I talk about that a lot because in DFS, like, fight IQ is what scores points. And he's not, he just doesn't do it. I mean, I'm not big on this kid making a UFC debut against an explosive striker like Thatch, who, even though he's fallen on hard times, he still is capable. Thatch is a fairly young guy. He's got a fairly decent record. I mean, he's 11-4, but he's fought some of the best up and coming prospects in the 170-pound division. The negative side about Thatch is his price and the fact that he's going up against a wrestler who probably can take him. Oh, we lost Chris. Hang on, everybody. Let me bring him back. Uh, the situation with Thatch, it's just not very promising to me with his price tag.
2, 6, 1, 3, 4, 7 is not available. At the tone.
Hey, are you back?
I'm back.
That was great. I called you back and I got your voicemail, so I just let everyone listen to your voicemail. Anyway, so where I was at was I was explaining the fact that I can't justify Thatch's price at 9,000 and the highest priced guy on the card. I know that he's going up against an inexperienced striker, but I feel like Nico Price's wrestling will actually negate a lot of what Thatch brings to the table in terms of DFS volume. If I do think Thatch wins this fight. That's my official prediction. Thatch wins this fight in some fashion, but I don't think that for 9,000 he lands enough volume to justify the price. Do I see a 100-point score here? Not really. I mean, unless he like somehow catches the kid, or the kid comes in with just the worst case of octagon jitters we've ever seen, which could happen. I just think that Thatch will end up cruising in this fight to some form of a decision. Maybe a lot of like stand and bland up against the cage, grind him out. And Thatch's dirty boxing does not produce volume. If anything, he just sort of stalls and waits for an opportunity to be explosive at his distance. But I think Price, at best, this is a short notice fight for him in a UFC debut against a vet. It's just not a good situation there. And even though he's the lowest price guy on the card, Nico Price, in my opinion, is not something I want to touch. What's your opinion on Thatch and Price?
I actually disagree with you in some sense, and I think Price actually has quite a bit of GPP upside. Thatch, I am horrified at this guy's technique. I'm horrified at his takedown defense. You watch this fight against Gunnar Nelson. This is the definition of low fight IQ right here. The way he just sat there in front of him, he just kept like it's almost like he was getting mad at Nelson for not engaging. So he kept dropping his hands, and I'm like, he would just like drop his hands and then put them, and then just kind of drop them. And just kind of like, oh, are you gonna do something? Oh, are you gonna do something? And then he dropped him. I think I want to say like the third time he kind of did that, and Gunnar just popped him with a 1-2 combination and dropped him. And he lost the fight because of it, just because of this. I don't know what happened there. I guess, I mean, every fight has kind of sometimes got to go through it. You know, that I think I'm invincible, but I'm not, so I need somebody to beat me up. I don't know. He's obviously very aggressive. He's very big for the division, too. I've got to imagine he works very hard to cut the weight that he does. And his knees are about as vicious as Tim Mean's elbows. So he definitely, but the problem is, Nico Price actually, is how wild he is, has a shot to win this fight because of that wildness. The fact that he's just fearless, and I'm just going to go out there and swing as hard as I can. Now, being the fact that it's the first UFC fight, you mentioned it could be jitters. He might get jitters, might not be very good, but I'm probably gonna have a lineup or two with Price in it. Batch, I'm not 100% sure what I'm gonna do here. I'm probably gonna have one or two lineups because I might fade Dominic Cruz later in the fight, kind of go a little direction in a couple GPP lineups where I have like Cody Garbrandt, Nico Price, and save some lineup or save some money on the, leave some money on the table there for my future lineup. So I'm thinking about doing a lineup like that actually.
Yeah, I don't have any problems with that at all. I think the problem that happened with Brandon Thatch was he thought that he could outmuscle and actually out wrestle Benson Henderson when the two of them had their little fight at 170 pounds when Benson Henderson was trying to like up his contract value before ditching the UFC to go to Bellator. And I think that pretty much knocked the wind out of his sails. I mean, it was his first time in a 5-round fight, and Bendo got his back in the 4th round and choked him out. It was just a classic situation where it didn't matter which weight class you were in. One guy's a better fighter. And
I actually thought he looked pretty good in that fight, though.
No, he did. Definitely did.
I thought he looked really good in that fight. And something happened where when he fought Gunnar Nelson, we don't even know if he made any progress or not because he fought him it was so stupid what he did there. It's one of those where fights like that end up on YouTube in the, collection type videos where it's like, okay, cocky fighter gets beat up or, it ends up in a collectional video like that. The stupid thing that he did there.
Yeah.
And then his next fight, he didn't look good again. And I don't know. I mean, this is definitely a fight where the UFC wants to build him up. They could have, but he was scheduled to fight another fighter the UFC wants to build up, and it didn't work out. So maybe this is a direction where they got the Nico Price. He's 8-0. Can make Brandon Thatch look good if he wins. If Nico Price wins, hey, now we got a 9-0 fighter we can promote. I don't know. I don't know what direction the UFC is going on this, but I don't like either fighter.
Yeah, for the pricing, like if this fight was like 82 to 8,000, then I might be interested in Brandon Thatch a little bit. But for 9,000 as the highest price guy, I'm just not into it. And as for that Gunnar Nelson fight, I think the problem happened there was the fact that he was so worried about Gunnar Nelson's world-class jiu-jitsu that he thought that he could handle him on the feet. And next thing you know, he got blitzed with that sort of like, Gunnar Nelson has that sort of stoic behavior where you don't think he's doing anything. And then all of a sudden he's laying you out. It's very, very Machida-like the way Gunnar Nelson surprises people. Anyway, in my opinion, I got to go with Thatch officially for the win. I'm okay with people having
shit. That's just why the low IQ comes into play. You should have known your opponent was going to do that, and then you did it anyways and got popped for it. So
there might have been some ego.
But,
there might have been some
again,
ego.
Going against the guy who has literally no technical skills whatsoever, no defense, extraordinarily wild, and he could easily get popped for it too. So I think this fight ends in a finish. I really do.
Who do you got officially on the finish? You there, Chris?
I'm so torn on this fight. This is probably the hardest fight for me to call in the night. Not even gonna lie, this is one of the hardest one of the harder ones I think I've ever called because I don't know. I just don't like these guys making their UFC debuts on such a short notice. So I think that takes some strikes against Price there. I guess I'll say Thatch for the win, but not even close to confident in that. I'm not even close. Not even close.
All right. We'll leave it at that.
I'm sorry.
No, it's totally fine. I just think that we'll go on record and saying officially Thatch's price is what sort of makes him unappealing. But if you're into live dogs, Nico Price has the potential to, he has a chance to rise to his potential. I mean, he is an undefeated fighter, but we see undefeated fighters come and go in the UFC all the time. He's 8-0 now, but he might be 8-2 and looking for a job in the World Series of Fighting after this is over. Who knows? All right, next up on the card, we've got Mike Pyle versus Alex Garcia. Garcia is coming in at 8,600, and in his swan song, Mike Pyle is coming in at 7,600. I really like Garcia's athleticism. I like his potential. I know we talk a lot about potential, but as a fighter who's growing within the UFC, he's a unique character coming out of Canada. Whereas Mike Pyle is as crafty of a veteran as there's ever been in the UFC. In fact, I wish that he was 10 years younger just so we could see more of him. Mike Pyle's early days were quite crazy. I mean, I think he actually has a submission victory early in his career against Carlos Condit. And not a lot of people have credit for that. But me personally, though, I think Mike Pyle is way over the hill. He probably should have retired after he got his last win, whenever that was. But, again, ego comes into play, and the guy keeps fighting because he needs a paycheck. But for me, Alex Garcia's only silver lining in his possible victory is his cardio. Alex Garcia's got big. He's a big, muscular guy. He tends to gas when he gets into clinch battles. But against Mike Pyle, I think Pyle's going to want to be flashy. He's going to want to try to leave it all on the table. So I got to expect a finish in this fight. And if Pyle doesn't somehow pull a rabbit out of the hat and catch him with either like a head kick or some sort of a spinning back fist, I see Garcia winning this handily. Yeah, for his price at 8,600, I mean, he's a much better play volume wise than a guy like Brandon Thatch at 9,000, just implied based on the scoring. He even averages more. He averages 72.2 points versus Thatch's 57.1. So I mean, there is that. I'm big on Garcia for this fight. I would probably have him as a cash game play. And I don't have any problems with him in GPPs, but there is guys around him that have more GPP upside. Garcia has the potential, though, for a 100-point score here. So what's your opinion on this one?
Yeah, I agree with you with Mike Pyle being way over the hill. He's 41 years old. I mean, isn't he old enough to be our grandpas at this point? I mean, this is, he's lost 4 of his last 6 fights and looking badly in almost every one of them. And what's hurt him too is he's a slow starter, and every fighter knows it. I mean, this is like the number one scouting report you're going to hear on Mike Pyle is how slow of a starter he is. His only wins in his last 6 fights are against TJ Waldberger, who hasn't fought since that fight and was actually on his decline and basically on his way out as well. And then he did beat Sean Spencer, who was the favorite in that fight by a minus 140 margin. So he did beat Sean Spencer, who's respectable. He just did that not too long ago. But he doesn't have.
You there, Chris? All right, so Chris is experiencing some really bad coverage by AT&T in Minnesota. I'm not sure exactly what's going on over there, but he was having problems earlier. We weren't even sure if we were going to get this podcast going. But once Chris is able to rejoin us, we'll definitely keep touching on that. He just dropped off again, so I'm going to let him call us back. I do apologize for the technical difficulties, everybody. So on paper, I believe both of us are picking Alex Garcia for the win. Mike Pyle, he just tends to wilt. He beats nobodies, but he loses to kind of somebodies, all the way up to anybody who's anybody. So Mike Pyle and his swan song, I would love to pick him, but I just can't do it. For DFS purposes, I got to go with Alex Garcia here. As we try to get Chris back on the air, let's see if I can give him a ring here. The next fight we're going to be touching on is Carlos Cardasapo and Jr. versus Marvin Vettori. Come on, Chris. Let's get an answer. And we're back.
Oh, boy, did I lose again?
Yeah, you were in the middle of a sentence, and then you were just gone.
Sorry about that, folks. We are in the middle of a bad storm here in Minnesota again, and we're just,
And all we got here on the California coast is a couple of frozen windshields every now and then, but overall we're nowhere near as bad as what's going on in Minnesota. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I apologize. I don't even know where I left off at, where I got cut off.
Basically, I picked up where you left off and kind of summarized it as we're both big on Alex Garcia, and Mike Pyle is just way over the hill, and I can't justify him in any lineups unless you're just totally going contrarian.
Right. Well, here's what I was going to say, though, is because of Garcia's strength, this guy literally can get a takedown at will. I mean, all he has to do is just get a hold of you and you go down. He is that powerful. The guy is that strong. His fight versus Strickland hurt him in the rankings, and I think this is more of a rebound fight for him than anything. This is a very talented fighter, and he needs a boost of a fight, and this is a good fight for him. Not a good fight for Pyle. I think Mike Pyle probably his retirement fight. And again, like I said, we're going to be having some themes today, and retirement is one of them because we have another fighter we think retires later on today too after that person's fight.
Well, speaking of guys that I kind of wish would retire, next fight on the card is Cara DeSapo, Carlos Antonio Jr., going up against Marvin Vettori. And I actually really like Marvin Vettori. He sort of caught us off guard. I know we were kind of like doing the whole prospect thing on him during the summer when we did one of our earlier podcasts. But to me, any man who loses by TKO to Dan Kelly is no UFC fighter. And I know Cara DeSapo was all on, tough Brazil, and they love him down there because of who he is and all this other stuff. But me personally, I think Cara DeSapo at 7-2 might as well be 2-7. I mean, the guy's flat-footed. His stand-up is next to nil. And if it wasn't for his good jiu-jitsu and sort of mediocre takedown abilities, he'd probably already be out of the UFC. Marvin Vettori, though, hits like a Mack truck. I mean, he doesn't care where it lands as long as it lands. And that sort of like go for broke mentality. And somehow he does that go for broke without actually gassing himself. So I'm actually really big on Vettori. I like his 11-2 record. It's fairly strong. He comes out of Italy, which is starting to produce some really good fighters. So for GPP, I'm all over Vettori here. What's your opinion on this fight?
Yeah, I got Vettori in my cash lineup so far. I'm pretty confident he wins this fight too. Might change to GPP just because Antonio Carlos Jr. He can just bore you. Like when you say he should be 2-7, it's because he doesn't do anything in these fights a lot of time. He can dominate from top position, and when I say dominate from top position, I don't mean he throws strikes. I don't even mean he goes to quick submission attempts. He just sits there and wins. Even if he wins, he's going to get 25 points for the winner by decision.
Yeah.
And then he'll get a couple, maybe at best, a couple takedowns. Won't be any reversals because he'll just sit there. Won't be any significant strikes because he's got no game. And he literally might get you 40 points for a win if he wins.
He's done it before.
That might be a little bit, but that's the best I can say with him. Marvin Vettori's got a high ceiling though, where he could easily. I think he can get a sub. More than likely, he would get the knockout, though. It would be, knock him to the ground with a good punch and then get on top and ground and pound his way to victory. And I think that's going to be my official decision is Marvin Vettori gets a winner, probably by stoppage somehow. More than likely, KO, TKO in the first. So I do think he's got that kind of upside.
Yeah, big on Vettori here. I can't think of a situation where he doesn't dominate Cara DeSapo. He's the faster fighter, and like you said, I don't think he has the chance to submit Cara DeSapo, but I think because Carlos is so slow with his ability to get submissions, it's almost like he telegraphs each part of the process when the sub comes. He's not a quick man at all, and even though he's a jiu-jitsu black belt, he just telegraphs himself so much that a young kid like Vettori with his speed and power, I think even if he was a white belt in jiu-jitsu, he'd be able to knock him down, jump into his guard, and pass guard before Cara DeSapo even had a chance to attempt a submission. I just don't see it happening for him. I got Vettori in a big way.
Yeah, and he's a quitter too. He's another guy who doesn't seem to be able to take a beating very well. The first hit that gets on him when he's on the ground, he's done. He's not going to try to get out of it. He's not going to, he won't even try to reach up and grab you and pull you into the chest to stop the fight. He just turtles up and quits.
Yeah.
He is big for his weight class. He started as a heavyweight when he was when tough, and has moved down 2 weight classes since and whatnot. But it's really our only things that we got for him is he's big for his weight class, which doesn't mean anything because he really doesn't know how to use his strength and power to knock people out, and he doesn't have a good stand-up game. And I don't think he's going to be able to. I just think Marvin Vettori should be able to, even if Carlos Jr. not on top of him, I think Vettori should be skilled enough to not be laying there for 3 straight rounds and lose that way. So maybe I guess, what I was talking about earlier, there is some risk to it, but I don't think there's a lot of risk, which is probably why I'm leaning towards Vettori for cash as well as GPP.
Absolutely. All right, before we waste too much time, we actually wanted to keep this thing at 30 minutes, but we're already at 30-minute mark, and we're just now approaching the halfway point of the card. So get yourself a cup of coffee, everybody. I hope you're stuck in a traffic jam listening to this, because here we go for the second half. And at least we're getting into some really good fights now. The next fight is actually Johnny Hendricks versus Neil Magny. This, to me, is probably one of the most intriguing fights on the card. Johnny Hendricks is a former welterweight champion. Neil Magny is a former tough castaway from one of the obscure seasons in the teens. Excuse me. Pardon. Pot stickers for dinner. Gotta love them. In fact, he was so bad on his season of tough that he got knocked out by an elbow strike up against the cage to Mike Ricci. Now, with that said, he did go on one of the craziest tears through the welterweight division we've ever seen, including totally taking out Hector Lombard, who used to be Bellator's 185 champion and had a 31-3 record at one point. Neil Magny has definitely improved, and he is the kind of fighter who has made strides towards greatness and has gotten himself into title contention, and he's a top 15 guy for sure now. But Johnny Hendricks, he should win this fight easily. On paper, just using MMA logic, Johnny Hendricks, this is supposed to be a fight that gets him back on track, gets him back on the winning path towards title contention, so that way he can be one of those guys to challenge for the 170 belt. Hendricks is a good matchup against anybody in the top half of that division, even guys that he's already lost to. I mean, who wouldn't want to see him fight Robbie Lawler again? I mean, it's just so fun watching those two guys beat the crap out of each other, but it's fun watching Robbie Lawler beat the crap out of anybody. For me, pricing-wise, I was blown away that Hendricks was actually the dog. I see a lot of value in Hendricks, especially at his price. I think. Do you have the price in front of you? I think it's like 7,600 on him.
Oh, crap. No, I did not write that one down. Hold on, I can pull it up.
Yeah, while you're pulling that up, I just wanted to touch on Johnny Hendricks' string of bad luck. I mean, the guy has fought a murderer's row, a who's who throughout the division. I mean, and even his his losses have been decisions until he fought Wonder Boy, and I really was dying to see him fight Tyron Woodley. In fact, I'd never seen anybody put it on Hendricks the way Wonder Boy did at that point. He's always been able to take a punch and give a punch, but you've definitely seen a change in his body mass. He's trying to lose weight in order to make weight, because he used to have weight cutting issues. I see Hendricks coming in fit, and I hope that his body looks recovered for the weigh-in on Thursday. Otherwise, I'm big on Hendricks pending the weigh-in. What do you think about this fight against Magny?
Wow, Magny has looked awful in his last couple fights. That Lombard fight, Lombard dominated him in the first, and that ref should have stopped it for both of the fighters had a, pretty much looking at the referee like, are you going to stop it? This guy's not doing anything, wasn't defending themselves intelligently, and that referee would not stop the fight. For both fighters at one point, Lombard had Magny absolutely beat. Referee should have stopped that fight at one point first, and then he got tired. Which is kind of the thing that happens with Neil Magny. The guy is just tough as nails, so he can take a beating forever, and then his opponents gas out, and he kind of takes over. Well, it didn't work very well against Lorenzo Larkin in his last fight. He bullied him, and Magny clearly, you can see it, does not like to be bullied. He's got an 80-inch reach, which is, I believe, the longest in the division, and he wants to keep his distance. He is, like a TJ Dillashaw, Dominic Cruz, some of these fighters, he is going to keep his distance, and with an 80-inch reach and how skinny he is, and how he doesn't really defend leg kicks very well. If you watch that fight against Larkin, those leg kicks were vicious, absolutely vicious. Even Lombard was starting to get him in his fight with some leg kicks and stuff like that. Johnny Hendricks should probably, by all rights, if he's watching what I saw, hit him with 12 leg kicks and win the fight. Don't even have to hit him with anything else. If you hit him with 12 leg strikes, you'll win the fight. That's it. That's all it's going to take against this guy. He doesn't have the meaty legs to take those type of shots because he's just so skinny for the division. So I do see a lot of weaknesses in Neil Magny right now. As much as he was looking improved for a while, I feel like he has been exposed in his last couple fights for what he kind of is. Again, I'm not trying to knock the guy in any way. These are what I see. The guy would absolutely destroy me if I was fighting him. So I'm not going to follow. Johnny Hendricks, good wrestler, good takedown, powerful strikes, and he's been working. I think he's back with his old wrestling coaches again. So it kind of makes me think that he really wants to get back to his old form again, because I believe he was kind of doing his own thing for a while.
Yeah.
And,
actually.
It just doesn't go well. I rarely will take a fighter if he or she is at a bad camp and or doing their own thing. That pretty much means I'm not going to take you if you do your own thing.
Well, that's sort of the red flag that it's. I don't want to call it a red flag. Maybe it's like a yellow flag. But Hendricks is kind of back to doing his own thing, like based with his old wrestling coach. He's gone back to him before after a loss. He went back to him after he lost to Lawler. And then I think he went away again. He keeps bouncing back and forth. He made some bad business investments. He had a steakhouse that went under. But his wife was actually the one that told him to get back on the horse. She basically put it out to him that he needs to fight in order for them to pay the bills. That was what I read between the lines in terms of the interview that he gave about it. But to me, Neil Magny is the right kind of guy for him to get back on track with. Neil Magny loses to guys who are better than him clearly in one specific area. We lost Chris again, but we'll get him back. In terms of like the abilities that Johnny Hendricks has on paper, he should be able to finish the job on what Hector Lombard started. He just needs to be consistent, follow through with his punches. He couldn't pull the trigger against Kelvin Gastelum, and he talks about that. That fight should have been an easy win for him, but Kelvin Gastelum keeps using his heart and his endurance to win fights, despite the fact that he also can never make weight. I mean, it's a strange situation there. For me, I'm big on Johnny Hendricks to get the rebound here. Neil Magny, he's just not up to snuff when it comes to the top 5 of the division, but he's a centerpiece in the top 15. So that's kind of where I stand on that. Let's get Chris back in here. Next up, we're actually going to be talking about Louis Smolka versus Ray Borg at 125 pounds. Nope. And then accept. Here we go. You there, Chris?
I'm back again.
And we're back. Well, I sort of put a conclusion on the Hendricks and Magny fight. I ended it with Hendricks with the caveat of him showing up at weigh-ins looking like a sucked up, grizzled carcass, basically all over Hendricks unless that happens.
Yeah, for the most part, I'm taking Johnny Hendricks for the win here. It might not take after like the second round or something like that. I think Magny is tough enough to survive, but Hendricks should win this fight.
All right, next up we got Louis Smolka versus Ray Borg. And this is a bit of a conflicting fight for everyone who's been sort of involved in picking the process. I know that I seem to be the odd man out in thinking that Louis Smolka has a legitimate chance to rebound after his freak loss to Brandon Moreno. For me, Louis Smolka is a legit top 10 fighter at 125 pounds. I actually picked him to be fighting for the title at the end of this coming 2017. Obviously, a big setback losing to Moreno, who was the number what I think it was the 16 seed on the tough champions tournament they had to determine who was going to fight Demetrius Johnson. But he just comes out of nowhere on short notice and beats a top 10 guy. I mean, that was pretty crazy. But
Yeah, he's a 5-1 favorite. Luis Smolka's a 5-1 favorite in that fight.
yeah, it's just crazy. I mean, we're talking like one of the most unlikely wins probably of the year. So, I mean, maybe that's burned Smolka to the point where a guy like Ray Borg, the Taz Mexican Devil, gotta love that nickname. So, I mean, I'm big on Ray Borg as a prospect. I love the kid and his tenacity and his ability to get on the inside and really pound on guys. His takedowns are great. And definitely he's going to be able to take down Smolka. But I feel like Smolka's reach, his submission game, outside of the Moreno fight. I think that he's got more advantages than Borg does, and I see him winning a decision. And it's probably going to be a high volume decision. I mean, we're talking about 125 pounders. These guys just naturally throw more volume than any other weight class. So I mean, that is a good thing going for either guy. And actually, I'm totally fine with having either side of this fight because even the loser could put up 60 points. What's your take on Borg versus Smolka?
Yeah, I think if you're the kind of guy who's got, if you're making two lineups, you have $400 left over, and one of these guys is in your lineup, you make the other lineup, or one with Smolka and one with Borg, because the winner is going to score a lot of points in this fight. There's going to be a lot of takedowns. Borg is pretty susceptible to the takedowns, but he's very good at reversals. And this is where the DraftKings scoring comes into play here. You get 10 points of takedown. Ray Borg could easily get you 5 or 6 takedowns in this fight. You get 5 points of reversal. Smolka could easily reverse along with Borg getting reversals. And there might be Ray Borg could probably, even if he loses this fight, could score. I think he's got a ceiling of 80 plus points in this fight with strikes, takedowns, and reversals. I think he could get almost 80 points in a loss. I think he's got that kind of potential. These guys are both very, very busy fighters. I'm giving the edge to Borg. Just because I think he's getting better training. He seems, I don't want to say he's taking it more serious because they're both taking it very serious. This is one of the most, this is actually a huge fight for both of these guys' directions right now. The loser takes a huge step back, and the other going for the title here in the next 6 months. That's kind of how I feel. That's why I think this is just going to be a fantastic fight. But, Smolka's just got so much talent. You watch him fight against Ben Lynn, he destroyed him. He destroyed Ben Lynn and looked like he's got a lot of talent. But again, it's a takedown defense that is a little suspect to me. But I think for that reason, I think that I do favor Ray Borg just for, I think, since it's going to turn into more of a submission / wrestling, grappling type fight, I think I give the edge to Ray Borg in a decision win. Probably like a 29-28. I just gotta assume Smolka can probably win a round, but it's a close fight, very close fight. If I make two lineups and I have $400 left over and one of them's in there, I'm making the second lineup with the other fighter just to protect myself.
Absolutely, I 100% agree with that. All right, next up is the fight that Ridge put an over-under at 8.5 dong references. There's one. We've got Dong Hyun Kim versus Tarek Saffiedine. And for me, this is a very interesting fight. I actually am a big fan of both these guys in terms of their fighting capabilities and their personalities. To me, the interesting thing about this fight was the scoring. Tarek Saffiedine at 7,700 is definitely alive in a 3-round fight. I mean, he's a former Strikeforce welterweight champion. Uh, he even has some really notable wins under his belt. Not to mention, he's been in there with Tyron Woodley. He knows what to expect in almost any fight that's standing up. The only way to really beat Tarek Saffiedine is to hold him down and try to pound on him. And even though Dong Hyun Kim has that sort of his judo background, he doesn't rely on it. He likes to go crazy. He likes to throw flying knees and spinning back fists, and he likes to get into dogfights. And I don't think you can coax Tarek Saffiedine into a dogfight. He's just too much of a polished stand-up fighter. My official prediction, just to keep it short and sweet, is Tarek Saffiedine by 15 minutes of chopping the leg. I think he's just going to chop the leg of Kim straight out from underneath him, and it's going to be a frustrating fight to watch and a frustrating fight for Kim to fight in. What's your take on this one?
100% agree. I want to take Kim so bad because of the talent that he has, but he refuses to. It's like what Ronda Rousey has been doing her last couple fights. Gotten away from her number one skill and decided to show off to the world my new toy that I have. Well, your new toy isn't very shiny, okay? It just isn't. So now, okay, so you watch him against John Hathaway when he announced to the world that he was going to be crazy, psycho, stupid fighter now all of a sudden. But exciting, and the fans love him because of it. He throws this spinning elbow, which is, I believe, the first one in UFC history to knock out somebody, and he wins KO of the Year award, I believe. He tries to do something similar against Tyron Woodley, and literally, if you watch, I probably watched that punch probably 6-7 times because I laughed so hard every single time.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. The guy spins around and gets dropped in the back of the head, just gets popped right in the back of the head, which I guess kind of illegal. But when you're spinning like that and there's nothing you can do, you're just gonna, you put yourself in that situation. He just got dropped. He just collapses. I'm just laughing because, you want to throw stupid spinning punches like that at a guy who, I feel like that type of technique only works when you got your opponent backing up and he's not an aggressive type fighter. And you can't do that against a Tyron Woodley or, somebody with that type of, style. I don't know. It was a really unintelligent thing to do, and he got popped for it.
Man, Dong Hyun Kim fights like that guy at every house party you went to when there's a guy who's like, I train in MMA, bro. I train in MMA. Yeah. I know how to fight UFC.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm sure he's got the UFC shirt and everything. I mean, whatever. Yeah. So, but no, he doesn't check leg kicks very well, and I believe Tarek Saffiedine has the highest thrown, it's either highest percentage of leg kicks landed or highest thrown or something like that. I should have.
Yeah, he's thrown more leg. If you combine Strikeforce, WEC, and the UFC, nobody has thrown more effective leg kicks than Tarek Saffiedine.
And those count as significant strikes, I believe.
Absolutely, they do.
When you landing hard enough. So you take that into consideration at a $7,700 price, he kind of makes for a pretty good value pick, especially because I think he's talented enough where even if Dong Hyun Kim decided to go back to his old ways, be smart, he's a 4th-degree black belt in judo. He is world-class judo.
Yeah, but
he doesn't use it.
He never
the last fight, I believe, he kind of got into it because the guy he was going against Josh Berkman, right?
Oh, yeah, the Berkman fight.
Yeah, and Berkman was cleaning his clock, and then he was going for takedowns on the guy, which allowed Dong Hyun Kim to recover, put him in a bad situation, and ultimately win the fight because of it. Else, he was getting beat on his feet by Josh Berkman. So I don't know. I don't think if he's going to continue to fight stupid like that, there's absolutely no way he wins this fight.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So we've confirmed that Saffiedine is a huge value play. But with that said, I will throw out maybe 10% GPP flyer on Dong, just because he does have the capability to actually land one of those crazy strikes.
I mean, you watch it. He's got several Fight of the Night awards and he's got KO of the Year awards. So the guy has the potential for the knockout, obviously. You don't get awards because you don't have striking ability.
But he's also been on the receiving end of a KO of the Year award.
Yes, he has.
All right.
I believe twice. So, yeah.
So moving on,
right.
I think the next fight that we're going to talk about is actually a really fun fight, in my opinion. TJ Dillashaw, the former bantamweight champion, is going up against the overweight, always missing in terms of, basically he's the 125-pound Kelvin Gastelum. I'm talking about John Lineker here, or as Uncle Creepy likes to call him, Fat Boy. So John Lineker finally conceded 125 pounds, moved up to 135 pounds, and has been on an absolute tear. He's winning fights against even guys like Dotson, who is a 25 pounder. I was really surprised that he was able to pull out the heart and the tenacity to beat John Dotson. That blew me away, especially since Dotson against Dillashaw in a rematch would have been sweet. Um, for this fight, though, even though Dillashaw is 8,800, um, I like Lineker at 7,400 only in GPPs because he can land one of those punches. But the problem is he plants his feet and he tries to throw 3 and 4 punch combos. And against a guy like Dillashaw, you're just not going to land 3 and 4 punch combos. You need to learn how to be light footed. You need to bounce around. You need to be able to like basically counter Dillashaw the way Dominic Cruz did in their title fight, which was a split decision, by the way. I mean, that was a crazy fight. But in my opinion, Lineker is just a tiny bit live against Dillashaw, but Dillashaw should easily cruise to a unanimous decision victory in this fight. He's just too smart. He's too much of a vet. He's a pro. I mean, Dillashaw's a pro's pro. And I can't see the way Lineker wins this fight unless Dillashaw just decides to like hop, skip, and a jump right into a left hook. I can't see it happening, and especially since it's a 15-minute fight. If this was a 25-minute fight, I'd be way more on Lineker, probably like 30% more on Lineker. But Dillashaw in a 15-round fight, I think he's got an easy decision here. What's your take on this one?
Yeah, and this is actually a fade because of everything you just said. Dillashaw's got too many angles, counters too well, and just is not going to engage and give any chance to Lineker to whatever. He's not going to give him a chance to fight with him. I honestly think this is going to be maybe 70, 80 significant strikes landed at the most. Dillashaw, probably not a lot of takedowns, if any. Probably stay on the feet the whole time. I don't see value in either guy, to be honest. I mean, I guess, like you said, I'm probably just going to fade both of them. I'm not trying to make a ton of lineups this week. I'm trying to go a little conservative. So personally, I'm fading this fight 100% because I just felt right from the beginning that this was the fight to fade. Of all the fights, this was the fight to fade.
Yeah, and Dillashaw is the kind of name where your average like Joe Schmo UFC fans, they'll probably have quite a bit of shares of him. So if you like look at this fight as a double fade and only play Lineker in a couple of GPPs, it's a pretty safe bet in my opinion.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to this fight. I'm literally just staying away from it. I think this is a fight that Dillashaw wins easily, but boring. And for DFS purposes, this is the definition of a fight you stay away from.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, next up, we finally got to the co-main event, the Bantamweight World Championship. The man who took TJ Dillashaw's spaghetti. That's a Tommy Toehold reference if anybody watches Tommy Toehold videos. He's going up against Cody Garbrandt. Cody No Love. The only man who's gone on record is saying he's got to bang Paige Van Zandt. Yeah, that was a thing. Not a lot of people know that.
Yeah, he sure did. And now she's starting fights over on either Twitter or Instagram or something like that with Dominic Cruz. I guess they were exchanging pics with each other. I don't know. I didn't follow it too well. I know they started getting into it pretty badly. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
Cody got Brandon and blocking both of them or something like that.
Well, to me, I was actually surprised at the pricing on this. I thought it would have been a little farther apart, which would have enticed me to have more shares of Garbrandt. But they sort of priced it fairly. I mean, they gave a lot of value to Garbrandt's puncher's chance, but in my opinion, you can't predict the fall of TJ Dillashaw, or excuse me, the fall of Dominic Cruz. The fall of Dominic Cruz has yet to happen. We're yet to actually see him deteriorate. Even though he won a split decision against Dillashaw, we're talking about a guy who spent his entire career mimicking Dominic Cruz's style for Uriah Faber to train for multiple title fights. It's the only reason Dillashaw fights the way he does, is because he had to mimic Dominic Cruz for so many years. And then you see the proof is in the pudding. I mean, he did an okay job against Cruz, but at the end of the day, you can't beat the original. I mean, he's literally Diet Cruz, and nothing beats the original. Cody Garbrandt, though, has unbelievable knockout power for a guy in his weight class. The way he was able to dismantle Thomas Almeida, a guy who was 21-0. I mean, we're talking about one of the brightest prospects, and the guy who should be fighting Cruz for the title if he would have won that fight. Uh, it's crazy to think that Garbrandt just walked in there and whipped it out and stuck it on his chin and said, "Take a picture." I mean, it was bad. That was a bloodbath on the Almeida side of things. To me, though, Dominic Cruz easily wins this fight over the course of 5 rounds, just like he always does in any fight. It's for a guy who moves so unpredictable. It's quite predictable to actually predict a Dominic Cruz fight, and I'm never going to pick against Cruz until I see him lose. And so I'll keep being right until the day I'm wrong, and then after that actually happens, then I'll start considering picking against Cruz. But to me, I've been watching Dominic Cruz fight for over 10 years, and I really appreciate what he does. He coaxes guys into stand up battles because he doesn't guard his face, but he moves in a way that makes it to where, I mean, it's like he lives in the Matrix. And even though his Matrix that he lives in is getting slower, just a little bit, he's still unbeatable, in my opinion, at 135 pounds. I think the only way we see Cruz lose is if he actually fights a guy like Jose Aldo and moves up in weight. That's the only way I see it happening. So I'm going to be all over Cruz by decision, and I know a lot of people are big on Garbrandt's punching power and ability. I have no problems with Garbrandt and GPPs, but I can't justify taking Garbrandt more than a couple shares of my own money. With that said, Chris, go ahead. Let me have it. Let me hear all about Garbrandt.
Uh, I don't know. I have Dominic Cruz in my cash lineup because his ownership percentage is going to be through the roof. This guy will probably be minimum 65, 70 to 75% owning cash easily. But I feel like I have to play him in cash no matter what because he's, of course, he's got the best. He's got a 5-round fight. He's going to land a lot of punches if this goes 5 rounds, and he just frustrates Cody the whole time, which he easily could. But Cody does have the speed and the power to do it, and with Cruz's technique, the way he fights, where his head is out there and his hands are down, you are gonna get pops someday. And who can do it? Cody Garbrandt can do it. So yes, absolutely, he is a GPP flyer, but I wouldn't touch him in cash because just when you're on this type of a tear that Dominic Cruz is on, and you've destroyed everybody you fought easily, to a point easily. I mean, I shouldn't say easily because he did, he's had his struggles. He's gotten hit too. He's not like unhittable either. He has gotten hit quite a few times. You watch his fights, he has gotten hit. But the thing is, he does know how to roll with the punches quite well. So if he gets hit, it looks good on camera, but he knows how to roll with the punches, so he absorbs them pretty well. However, Cody Garbrandt does have that power. He's got those iron fists that can just pop right. I don't know. It's the only reason I could easily see Cody Garbrandt in a couple GPPs for me, and I don't know.
It's tiring to even think about. I said it's tiring to even think about. I mean, if you think about the fact that we're going to watch Cody Garbrandt fight Dominic Cruz, just the mental process of that as an MMA fan is exhausting.
Yeah, I'm because I say I'm trying to go conservative with my lineup. I'm somewhat tempted to say Cody Garbrandt, but I feel like he's unfadeable on a couple GPPs. I feel like you have to take the shot with Cody Garbrandt.
Yeah, he needs to be in a lineup with like Vettori and Hendricks. You know what I mean? Like that's gonna be a crazy line that could take down a GPP.
Yep.
All right, let's just leave it at that then and move on to the main event. Oh, and just in case, Ridge, you were counting, dong, 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 dong. I'm pretty sure that clears the over.
I think I was the one who asked the bet on that one.
Oh, that was you who asked the bet?
I'm still going to try to keep the family clean.
All right. Well, I'm just talking about a South Korean guy, right?
Of course.
All right, dong, dong, dong. All right, main event time. Amanda Nunes versus Ronda Rousey. Now,
she's back.
Yeah, whatever.
I know, right?
This whole promotional shit that's like going on with her, like I don't even want to get into it because I could talk 30 minutes just on how much I hate how they promoted this fight and the fact that they let her miss media obligations and all this other crap. I mean, we're talking about the same company that banned Nick Diaz and pulled him from a George St. Pierre fight because he didn't show up to a media obligation. I mean, suck.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's a family show or whatever, but suck my balls, UFC. That's a bunch of crap. All right.
Dana White just, I don't know. I think he literally has a thing for Ronda Rousey and would do anything to break up her and Travis Brown so he can have his shot with her. Like, he is obsessed with this woman. Obsessed
Yeah,
with her.
it's pretty awkward actually.
It's a little awkward. Yeah, I don't want to talk about it anymore because, I don't know.
Well, let's look at the bright side. Amanda Nunes has cinder block fists, and she gets to punch Ronda Rousey. I'm trying to be unbiased here, but let's be honest. I'll put my official pick right out there. I think Ronda Rousey is going to get obliterated. I think that there's
First round.
Yeah, absolutely. These are two first round fighters. Let's get to the actual brass tacks of it. These are two first round fighters. That's what they do. The only time Ronda's ever gone into later rounds is when she decided she wanted to beat the piss out of Misha Tate for 3 rounds before she finally submitted her. I mean, we're talking like dismantled her face, and she can't even throw a straight punch. This was before Misha, became a better fighter and learned from that loss and eventually won the title from Holly Holm after Holm beat Ronda. But to me, Ronda Rousey, as long as she's under the tutelage of Edmund Tarverdyan, she's never going to get back to the level that she thinks she's at or ever was at. Her mystique carried her for so long, but it ain't like she's Conor McGregor. I mean, Conor McGregor has pinpoint accuracy. That is one thing that Ronda Rousey will never have is pinpoint accuracy. Now, I know that the one exception to the rule is the Betch Correia fight, but Betch Correia has gone on to lose to Rocky Pennington, and I forget who else she lost to, but basically, Betch Correia's true colors were shown after the Rousey fight. Uh, Ronda, we don't even know where her head's at. I mean, we're talking about a chick who 4 months ago, her arms looked like speed bags. I mean, like all the TMZ photos of her coming out of Starbucks looked like she was in there drinking 5 Starbucks before she left with one. I mean, the woman just doesn't take care of herself in the off season, and she does have a ton of natural talent. Her submission game is legit. If it goes to the ground, Amanda Nunes is probably fucked. But as long as the fight starts standing, Amanda Nunes is going to have a chance to lay her out. And in my opinion, she should throw a front kick to the face and end this thing in about 6 seconds. Uh, with that said, you can't count out Ronda Rousey in GPPs. They're both first round finishers, which means someone's going down. I have no problems with people taking shares of her, but for 8,400, Ronda Rousey to me is overpriced. This should have been the 8,100 fight. This should have been the 50-50 fight, in my opinion. But if anything, Amanda Nunes should have been the favorite. I mean, I don't know what Vegas odds are on this one offhand, but Amanda Nunes has won the title and proven that she's the best fighter currently for, quite a while. You got anything you want to add to this?
I think Ronda Rousey was just better than all the other women because the other women were not good fighters, and I'm not disrespecting women in general. I just don't think, obviously, women are just not as talented as men in the fighting. Overall, there are a few exceptions. Amanda Nunes is that exception. She hits like Cody Garbrandt does. She hits like some of these men that we just talked about. She hits that hard. She is that legit. She is butch. I remember I was talking to one of my cousins, she's about my age or whatever, in her 30s, and I'm just kind of talking to her about UFC, and she sees a picture of the Nunes-Rousey promo, and she's like, whoa, is that who Rousey's fighting? Uh-huh. Like, I don't think Rousey's going to win this fight. She just looks so scary. I just started laughing. It's like, yep, she isn't. She is not going to win this fight. I honestly will have probably 0 shares of Ronda Rousey. I am not even kidding. I have no respect for her game when it comes to the elite. She's not an elite fighter. Not even close. She is a middle-of-the-pack fighter who was ahead of her time because she had one thing that was better than everybody else, which was her judo. Amanda Nunes can defend against the judo flip. She doesn't have to match it. She just has to defend against it. She doesn't have to match her ground game. She just has to defend against it. She is more than capable of doing that. So even if this fight goes to the ground, I'm not even concerned. I honestly think Nunes destroys her in all facets, and this doesn't even go to the second round. This is over, and this is the retirement fight for Ronda Rousey, and we are going to have 2 fighters retire on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, Ronda's pretty much already retired anyway. I feel like this is a cash fight. I feel like she's only doing this because a couple of her movies fell through and she didn't exactly make an impression on the set of Roadhouse. I don't know if you've read about that, but she's the new Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse. It's like the worst thing I've
No,
ever.
I have not seen that.
Yeah, and so far the test footage is not going well. The whole concept was like she basically got herself into the back pocket of some producer who thought it was a good idea, and now she's Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse. It's the worst thing I've ever heard. I don't even know what they're going to call her. I mean, Daltina? I mean, his name was Dalton, so I mean.
I know. I've watched Roadhouse 1,000 times because, Jeff Healey is in there. He's probably one of my favorite guitar players and musicians of all time. So I just sit there and jam to that whole soundtrack all day long. I love it. Absolutely love that show.
I just.
That she's even going to be in that movie makes me want to throw up right now. I did not even know that, and I want to throw up right now.
Yeah, just the fact that we're going to hear Ronda Rousey say, "Nobody puts baby in corner."
And to try to believe her as a person who's going to fight against these tough men in a bar, I'm sorry, she's not. No. Ronda Rousey is average fighter in the women's division at best. I don't know. Watch her punch. She's got terrible stand-up, terrible punches, terrible accuracy, no head movement, no footwork, and she's being trained by Edmund versus Amanda Nunes, who's at American Top Team and has been for, I believe, a little over a year now.
Yeah.
And is just making tremendous strides. She's getting the best training. Oh, and she's a lesbian, too. Lesbians are always tougher than straight chicks. Always.
I think that Amanda Nunes has grown since her loss to Kat Zingano. She's gone on a tear. She almost beat Kat in that fight too. Since her loss to Kat Zingano, she's really changed her career for the better. Obviously, she's made it to the top, whereas Ronda Rousey is stagnating with probably the worst coach in MMA. I can't think of anybody who's worse than Edmund Tarverdyan. I mean, he's just a know-it-all who's addicted to gambling and has no business being a coach for any legitimate fighter. I mean, just look at Travis Brown's career since he went there. He left Greg Jackson's camp to go train with his girlfriend, and he's gotten the shit kicked out of him 3 times since it happened. He was a 16-1 fighter. Now he's an 18-4 fighter. He's just, it's not great. All right.
I believe Edmund. I heard this on. I probably did. I can't remember where I saw this at, and I apologize. It's not 100% accurate, but his fighters are like 8 and 30 something, like 8 wins and 30 some losses over the last whatever. I apologize. These are another thing. Sometimes I'm not the greatest at writing things down. I hear a lot of things and see a lot of things and find a lot of things, and you should probably take some better notes sometimes, but. Yeah, Edmund's fighters have like 8 wins and 30 some losses in the last 40 some fights. That is. Yeah,
Jake Ellenberger has looked like shit.
If you're 8 for 32 as a baseball hitter, you're still not, you're still not being successful. You're not doing anything. There's no way of, putting those 2 numbers together and being good, especially in fighting.
Yeah, that's a 250 batting average.
That's atrocious. And if you're batting 250 or whatever as a fighter.
Alrighty, we are approaching the 70-minute mark for this video, so I think I'm going to call it a night for UFC 207. Man, do I wish we got Cain Velasquez versus Fabricio Verdum. Man, do I wish that was a thing.
We lost the cash option. Just put it that way.
Yeah, we lost the cash option. Cain Velasquez. We lost. Back in the day in football, they used to have what they call the stone cold lead pipe locks. And Cain Velasquez was that guy.
Yes. He was going to win that fight, and he was going to win it very handily and score a lot of points while doing it.
Alrighty. With that said, everybody, thank you for listening to this week's edition of MMA Cheat Sheet Live. And coming into 2017, I hope you hear a lot more of us. I hope that we can make time and find a way to get more podcasts out there, even if it's just one of us. Maybe it's just Chris. Maybe it's just me. Who knows? Maybe even Ridge will pick up the mic again. But with that said, we bid you farewell and we thank you for another good listen. Enjoy that traffic jam you're stuck in right now listening to us. Good night, everybody.